Okay.
You
It
know,
is a little different because I can't always see all three of us, but I know Gary's on, right, Gary?
yes, here.
Okay. So we're all here. I'd like to welcome everyone and call to order the June 29th, 2021 Wenham Select Board meeting. It is 6:30, for the record, 6:32 p.m. And before we even begin, pass the welcome, before we even go to public input, I didn't even want to get this far without recognizing someone. I know he knows who he is, I believe. So tonight, although we're not saying goodbye, as long as Tom's clear on that, I believe this is our interim town administrator, Tom Younger's last official select board meeting. So I wanted to take this opportunity to say a special thank you to Tom. I was not here the whole time you were here. I'm going to let Gary certainly say a few words, but I totally appreciate everything that you've done. And I know you hopefully enjoyed it, but it can't have been the easiest, however many months. So thank you so very much for your good work, for really keeping things moving forward, which sounds not important, but for an interim TA, with your knowledge, to be here and to be able to keep things steady and stable and move things forward, and so easy to work with, really a pleasure. So I know you're going to physically be around for the next couple of weeks, but I think this is your last official select board meeting. So I would just wanted to say thanks. And I didn't know if Gary or Diane wanted to.
I'll jump in first and say thank
Gary's
you.
the veteran there.
Certainly, Tom came here and handled a very unique situation of managing a single select board member at the time. So his great experience and expertise from his many years certainly has served the town of Wenham well, and we thank him and hope that he'll re-enjoy retirement again if that's the course he wants to take. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Gary.
And if I could say my thank yous, I said it to you yesterday, but you've just been a wonderful help to me in my new position. And it's really been much appreciated, as well as all the stuff you've done for Wenham. It's been great for me.
Thank you. Catherine, can I say a few words?
Oh, please.
Okay. First of all, the people I want to thank, oh, I've got other people watching too.
Yeah, we got rid of the screen share. That's nice.
That's right. I want to thank the residents of Wenham for literally letting me into their homes every week through Zoom. Those are the people that I am literally very, very thankful for, because we are the ones who are working for you, and it is important that we get the job done. And we've got a wonderful team here, and I couldn't do it without them. So I've got way too many names to thank, but everyone here has been so great working with, particularly through the challenges that we had early on this year. Specifically, I'd like to thank those department heads and Gary. Gary, I think, is probably one of the first to operate a one-member board. And
yeah,
he did. I talked to him this afternoon, and he did it in such a wonderful, cordial, and great working relationship. So I want to thank you for working with you, Gary, and literally spending every Tuesday night with you for about 3 or 4 months while we were working through this. So I want to thank you for that. My only regret is literally now that the pandemic, for a certain degree, is over. Things that I would have loved to have done in this community, particularly with what I call the smiley face departments, library, recreation, and the council on aging, and working with the residents on that. I'm really not going to get the opportunity to, but I know they're in capable hands with Jim, Kim, and Sean, and I wish you the best now that you have the chance to really go forward and work with our residents. And the one thing I'd like to say at the end is the department heads who work with me know I like to quote movies and television series and such. But at this point, to quote a probably not so great Hallmark Channel movie, I wish I would have met you sooner. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're very lucky to have you here, Tom. But like I said at the beginning, please don't leave yet. We've got a couple of weeks of transition and it's going to be really important. So this is just goodbye for the moment.
Right, you haven't changed the locks yet.
Right, not yet. Okay. So first, after our normal first thing on the agenda would be public input. So if there is anyone on who has anything that they would like to say, and can put your name, I'll give you a second or two to put your name in the chat. We will take any public input at this time.
Catherine, there's
Well,
no chat, but if I
okay.
just on behalf of all of the staff, we had our last department head meeting with Tom on Thursday. And I know that all of us here on staff, all the department heads are going to miss Tom a lot. We really appreciated his expertise and his guidance and his thoughtfulness and his willingness to just come in and roll up his sleeves over the past few months. So I am not alone in the department heads. We're so thankful for him over the past few months. And we really, Tom, you're welcome back anytime. And we owe you several parties because we really have not had much social time this year, but we definitely hope to see you back soon.
Well, thank you.
So given that there's no public input, if you'll forgive me for a second, Jamie, I know that you have a very tight time constraint this evening and we will take your reports out of order. But do you have time to wait until after announcements or reports, or do you really need to get going quickly?
I can
5
wait.
minutes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I can wait. Thank
All
you.
right, I'll move you up to the beginning of new business. So that leaves us next with announcements, and Tom,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
As part of our weekly announcements, we are again stating what boards and committees we have open and waiting your applications. If you want to submit your interest in serving through our appointment request Google form found at wenham.gov/volunteers by sending an email to the attention of the select board at admin@wenhamma.gov. The openings that we still have on the board that we haven't formally addressed yet are the audit committee for 2 openings for a 1-year term, the council on aging board, 2 openings for a 3-year term, the Hamilton Wenham Community Access and Media Board has 1 opening for a 3-year term. The Hamilton Wenham Cultural Council has 1 opening for a 3-year term. The Iron Rail Commission has 1 opening for a 1-year term and an opening for a 3-year term. The Town Government Study Committee, the 3 to 5 membership considering the board subcommittee, has 1 open to fulfill an open seat with a term through the end of this year, 2021. Wish Committee has 3 openings. 1's a 1-year term and 2 are 3-year terms. And the ZBA will now have 2 associate members openings for a staggered term, since we'll be addressing one of those membership openings tonight. There are no letters of interest at this time for any of these boards and committees. Please feel free to apply at www.wenhamma.gov/volunteer. Next, Town Hall will be closed on Monday, July 5th in observance of Independence Day. I hope all the residents of our community have a happy 4th of July. And just reminder that we will be closed on Monday the 5th. Next, this is a first for me. This is announcing a tire collection event on Saturday, August 7th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at DPW Garage. What this is that the New England Northeast Mass Mosquito Control Commission invites you to drop off passenger vehicle tires without rims at no charge. No commercial tire trucks are being accepted at this time. The reason why, and I didn't know this till I found out myself, is that tires without rims do collect rainwater, which can breed mosquitoes. And Northeast Mass Mosquito Control is actively working toward protecting our community from excessive mosquito breeding. So if you have any more information about this service, check our website. This is their website at anymassmosquito.org. So if you're not using your tire for basically a tire swing or lifting it for weightlifting purposes, please bring it down here, because remember, the mosquitoes do not get counted in our census. I leave this to Jackie. This is something that she had been working on previously, and the Citizens Leadership Academy is a great program for any community. And so I'll let her bring this up because she has done such a wonderful job with this.
Thank you, Tom. So I am excited to announce that we're back this fall of 2021 with the Citizens Leadership Academy. This will be our 4th time that we've run the Academy. It's a great program, whether you're new to Wenham, new to joining our boards and committees, or just want to get a closer lens at how your town government operations work. It's truly a really engaging experience. We welcome all residents 17 plus to join us. There's 11 sessions. It'll run from September to December. And it's a great way to expand your knowledge of how Wenham works. And I will say it's also a great way to get to know our department heads and our different board and committee members. I always joke with the department heads that it's the best time because we get to talk about all of the great things that we do and all the services that we offer and all the things we've accomplished, but nobody's trying to cut our budget at the end of our presentation the way the rest of the year. So please do check out the website. Signups are open now. We'll hopefully have the schedule published midsummer. And as we have done in years past, we will end the sessions with our mock town meeting and get to practice how we operate at town meeting time. And I will say I can see Roger Smearage is our new moderator. He is in the audience tonight. And Roger, I will certainly be in touch because we are hoping that your inaugural moderation will be actually at a mock town meeting this December. It was part of the Academy. Sorry to put you on the spot. It's one of the highlights. Oh, I got a thumbs up. That's great. Thanks, Roger. So yeah, please reach out if you have any questions or feel free to sign up. It's really fun, really engaging. We really pull out all the stops without spending any of your tax dollars. So come on and join us for the Fall 2020 Academy.
So just before we start reports, I just wanted to comment on the Leadership Academy. I am so thrilled, Jackie and everyone, to see that back. You know, it's been a little questionable. Weren't sure how it was going to happen, but it is really an amazing time. I've had the privilege of attending quite a few of the sessions, and I hope to do that again this year. It's for folks that want to just understand a little bit more about, a lot more probably, about how town meeting works, or town government works. It's all about that. But I will say you have the added benefit of every session has a little bit of fun, and it's really not a dry, boring sit, listen to people talk time. So I also thank you again, Jackie, and encourage people to sign up for that. That said, we have reports, and our first report is for our town administrator report. Tom?
Thank you very much, Catherine. First update, these are a number of updates. First, and this is something I just heard about earlier this month, but just regarding the, this would be, I think, the second annual Council on Aging Parade. Because it's been late in the year from returning from COVID, I've been reading that there's some discussions on having this sometime in the fall, because it was originally going to be held on June 26th. So I'm looking forward to, if it's being conducted this fall, seeing what the Council on Aging comes up with this parade. And if I'm available, I'll probably come down to enjoy it as a resident, as a citizen. So thank you very much, Jim, and for everybody else on the council who may be working on it. Next is some legislative updates. First, on our recall bill, the hearing was conducted at Joint Committee on Election Laws, but it has not been released yet from committee. Also, the budget bill, the state budget bill, is still in the House and Senate Conference Committee and has not been released yet. Third, and this is not a legislative update, but a bylaw update. And this is good news. Literally, I was told by a town clerk literally 10 minutes ago. that the select board bylaw has been approved by the Attorney General's office.
Yes.
So once she posts the bylaw tomorrow, you are officially select board members.
Phew.
And
Yay. Now it won't be confusing anymore.
no, but that was an action which, you know, the town fully supported. I supported it. This is my second select board that I've actually we've gotten this through, and that's great. And I'm very proud of it. And I'm very proud of you for all supporting it. So that will be in effect tomorrow.
Exciting.
Great. Other items, briefly this Thursday, evening at 7, the Town Government Study Committee reconvenes after a little break, and we'll be meeting at 7 o'clock. Also, the survey that they've been working on will be on our site this week. In the beginning of this week, boards, committees, employees, if they wish, will have access to the survey. And from my understanding, later this week, it will be on the website for the public to be involved. So please look forward to it, and we're looking forward to your comments and your thoughts on that. Last item, I attended, this is probably would be my last North Shore Coalition meeting. And we had it on Zoom, and I think it's going to be on Zoom for the upcoming future, which is a coalition of basically the North Shore communities, large and small city and towns. And a lot of discussion on regionalization and such. And I would hope that, I'm pretty sure that Ryan will participate, Ryan Ferrari, new town administrator, going forward in the future. And I participated when we were in Swampscott and thought it was great there. And I think it's a good place for Wenham to hear their views and understand how the other committees are operating. Next, this was put on the site just recently for tonight's meeting, our new fire truck engine 4, which we funded at the 2020 annual town meeting, will be coming soon to Wenham. So it's being finalized and constructed, and there's some photos of how it looks now. And looking forward to having it in our station coming shortly. And here is our cruiser. A new cruiser, and I believe that's already in place. And looking forward, this is something we've recommended, that a cruiser has to be on an annual basis going forward in the town. So this is part of the program, and I'm pleased to see us continuing forward with that. And last evening, we had Public Safety Recognition Night, and it was so glad to get our safety team together last evening, even though it was close to 100 degrees. The one thing about this crew, you never see them sweat, even during their efforts or even last night. They do a wonderful job. We actually formally pinned our officers, our new officers, our new firefighters. Chief DiNapoli was pinned as our new chief. And I want to thank this team. You have a very, very tough job. And a lot of you are working 2, 3 jobs while being a call firefighter or being a reserve officer. But that shows that you care about our community. So I want to thank all of you on that. And I do want to thank chiefs and our deputies for both fire and police for working with them over the past 8 months. And it's been an incredible pleasure, and I appreciate your dedication. So I don't know if any of the board members would like to say anything. Were there last night?
It was a really nice occasion. I think it's one of those silver linings, perhaps, of COVID. If the public safety officers are willing and able to, I feel like, and I heard several people comment last night, that this could be something that's an annual event for us, sort of in the spring, to get everyone together and to do the recognition for all the people who work so hard in our public safety departments. So thank you to everyone. A special thanks to HW Cam, who was there recording, and I believe then we'll also be able to view the recording should someone wish to, and also provided some really great speakers and sound system. So it was a very hot but very nice night. It moved pretty quickly, but it was great to see everyone there. It was great to see families there. Just a good night. I think we should continue thinking about that for next year as well. So thanks to everyone. That's all I got.
And last of that, we just had a Juneteenth flag raising ceremony, and appreciate everybody who was involved in putting that together. We've had a couple of flag raising events in the past month at Town Hall, and they both went off very, very well. And I appreciate everybody from the town and the boards and the committees who were involved in these events.
Okay, excited for you, Tom, for
Thank you.
tonight. I just have a couple of quick more announcements than reports. Tom mentioned, and I'll just highlight a little, that this past week on Zoom, I was able to attend the State House Joint Committee on Elections to be able to speak very briefly, testimony for our recall petition. There were 70 bills there to be acted upon by that group. It was fascinating. But I've done this before. It's a good group of people. And I think there were more people, more legislators there than in the past that I've done this, probably because we were able to do it on Zoom. So I was glad to be able to do that. I've been told it'll be at least 6 weeks before they act on that. Where we are in the 70 might have something to do with it, but I'm sure that Town Hall will hear about the recall petition provision. Secondly, I just wanted to remind everyone, I think everyone knows, and why we're saying goodbye for now to Tom is that our new permanent town administrator, Brian Ferrara, starts next week. He will be in the office next week. He's got the town hall employees, I won't mention names, have him very busy for the first couple of days, but I'm sure that we'll all have an opportunity to get to meet him as he spends his time in Wenham. So we're looking forward to having him here in town. That's all I have. Gary or Diane, do you have any report that you'd like to make?
Not at this time, from Gary.
Okay, Diane.
I'd just like to thank the whole public safety team that we saw yesterday. I've been honored to work with them since 2014, and I just think they're awesome. And that ceremony that everyone put together was great. So I thank you all for that.
Great. Okay, our next item would normally be the consent agenda, but we do not have any items in our consent agenda tonight. So we will move past that. And this is the point where we begin new business. And with the board's permission, because Jamie has a second, fourth, fifth commitment tonight, I'm going to ask that we take the agenda out of order and move right down to, I guess it will be E, letter E, starting with year-end transfers, review and potential approval, and a presentation from Finance Director Jamie Collin. I'm not sure if, Tom, you have anything to say before that, or we'll just pass it to Jamie?
Just pass it to Jamie.
Okay, it's all yours, Jamie. Thank you.
Thank you. So these are transfers that were requested from department heads and myself. The first one is just over $12,000 for, that was an error. It should have been in fire expense instead of salaries and wages. There's no longer a part-time mechanic, so they outsourced that. There are several items on here that are moved over from expenses to one form of expense to another because they were put incorrectly in the budget. Anybody from the library was contract longevities that weren't accounted for because of the union, their negotiation that they did with the union. I don't know, do you want me to read every single one or just?
Well, we've seen them. Unless the board wishes otherwise, we could maybe summarize them, or if anyone has any particular questions about individual ones.
Yeah, the big bulk is just the library of union increases that weren't accounted for. So it's all coming from their budget. It's just moving salaries a lot. It's moving the money around within their budget. The last big chunk is moving some money from finance, town administrator lines, Board of Health, permitting into the TA salary wage to cover costs for having Tom on board for as long as we did. And that's where you see that big jump of 21 at the bottom. But it total is $47,265.25.
Okay. Are there any questions, Gary?
No,
Any
I'd just
questions
like
on this?
to just point out that this is for the public, this has already gone through a finance committee and received their approval. And that the 47,000 is not an increase in the budget, it is just simply shifting from one account to another. So it balances out to overall zero change.
Diane, any questions?
No,
And since this is authorized and voted upon by the select board as well as the FinCom, I think there should be a motion, yes?
There you go.
Yep.
Okay, I'll read the motion then. Move to approve the year-end transfers as approved by the Finance Committee on June 23rd, 2021, and as presented tonight.
second.
And
Yeah.
any further comments?
Well, I just might add that, again, for the minutes and for the record, we might add to that for a total transfer amount of, and put in the 47,265.25 as a friendly amendment to that, a total transfer amount, a friendly amendment to that motion. Which
Right.
I didn't think of until just
The
now.
motion is amended then. A second.
Second,
And the vote, Diane,
yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
Gary, yes. Back to
Okay.
James then.
Yeah, back to Jamie.
So next is a update on CARES Act and FEMA. CARES Act and CARES Act funds were distributed to cities and towns so that we could pay for COVID-19 expenses that were not budgeted for. The town of Wenham received $465,000, of which the town asked last year for the total sum for cash flow. So all I'm doing on my end is reporting. 3 rounds of reporting have been done thus far. One more round of will be done by the end of October. CARES has brought guidance saying that although the money was approved till the end of December 31st, 2021, they want us to be done spending and reporting by the end of October. That gives the government time to reallocate funds. If there's anything that we need to purchase after that date, I have to get special permission, pre-approval for them to be able to do so. Thus far, we've used $248,215 roughly in salaries, and we've used $773,000 roughly in expenses covered by FEMA. Again, this is just reiterating that CARES Act funds, they need to be reported by the end of October because the government wants to be able to reallocate funds. Finance office is working very hard to complete all the necessary reporting and reimbursement requirements, especially with FEMA, which has been the one that is a little bit more tedious than CARES. ARPA, also known as American Rescue Fund Plans, was signed into law on March 11th of 2021. These funds are to help local governments continue to fight COVID-19. So the guidance, a lot of guidance has been going on. I've been sitting in MEMA and FEMA webinars almost weekly. They have, the first initial guidance that we had was that we would have to apply for these funds, which we have now done. Thank you, Tom, for your help on that. Uses for this money is supporting public health expenditures, addressing negative economic impacts, replacing lost public sector revenue, and provide premium pay for essential workers, invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. The town is set to receive $1,577,630 in total from municipal and the county portion. Essex County's distribution is just over $1 million. We're still waiting from guidance from Treasury to see when this portion is going to be distributed because we qualify as a non-functioning county. 552,441 is the municipal portion, which is what I applied for. That we will receive in 2 installments. The first it's 2 equal installments. So the first payment of $276,220.50 will be paid out as early as May. Again, we just applied for it, so it'll be sometime in the near future. And then the second 50% will be 12 months after we receive the first. So the guidance and information from ARPA is new, it's fresh, it comes in every week. Every week is something new, so I'm sure this may change a little bit. But yeah, this is where we're at right now. The reporting for this, I'm not even sure how tedious it's going to be. The benefit that we have with ARPA is that I'm here now, so moving forward, I would like to centralize these funds as much as I can so that I'm paying out the warrants weekly for anything that has to do with this money. We'd work with the new TA coming on board and the FinCom and Select Board to figure out what we're going to do with these funds moving forward.
Thank you. Questions for Jamie? Gary?
Not here, just point out that as everything, this comes with some very probably stringent or categories that we're going to have to spend the money in. So it's not just a blank check. The public ought to understand.
Right.
Sure, that's true. Diane, any questions?
No questions. Just thank you, Jamie. That was very easy to understand.
I
Yes,
tried.
thank you.
All the information they throw at you is
Yeah, we get some of the emails and I clicked on some of the, guidance and thought, oh, phew, thank goodness, I don't have to do this.
Don't worry, Catherine, I have your back.
I'm counting on that because all I do is say, oh yeah, there it goes, delete. So Jamie's handling that. So thank you for all of that. And this is a lot of money and it's being put to good use by the town. I know. I don't know what we would have done with COVID, some of those COVID expenses without these kinds of funds. So thanks to the government for that. And Jamie, to you and your team for keeping track of it all. Do you have anything else for us tonight, Jamie?
I think that's it.
Okay. That being said,
me.
thank you. No problem. We will get back on order in the proper order of our agenda. We have our next, our second meeting of appointments. And I think this has worked well. Hopefully we'll talk more about this later, but we'll ask Gary to make the motions and Diane to second them. And if we have any questions or comments, we can ask them. But whenever, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get to the appointments myself. Whenever you're ready, Gary.
All right, so here we go. Move to appoint Michelle Princey, Jamie Colon, and Catherine Tinsley as police matrons for a term beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Any comments? We discussed it last week, right?
We'll take a vote. Gary?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Catherine? Yes. Okay, that's
Congratulations
that
to all
one.
3.
Yeah, thank you. Next one, Gary?
All right.
Tom?
All right.
Catherine?
So this is
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry,
sorry.
Tom had something to say.
I'm
I
sorry.
can't keep track of that.
I'm sorry. One thing, just want to state, Catherine and I have been working on, because last meeting, we made the board made the police matrons special municipal employees. Catherine and I have been going through the list we've had through the town clerk's office of all the boards and committees and looking to see which are defunct boards and committees that were special municipal employees. So the board probably in your next couple of meetings could update the list. So if those boards and committees have been defunct, we could eliminate them from that. I've gone through it. Given what I saw to Catherine, Catherine's going through the list. And we should probably have an updated one for you for one of your future meetings to make those changes.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea to update it. Some of those, as I saw them, went way back and are not likely to be, active again in that form. So thank you for that, Tom. Sorry I didn't catch you right away.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. All right, now we're moving on to Cemetery Commission, I think.
All right, move to appoint Olivia Shuvelin as a cemetery commissioner for a term beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Is there a second? Just one comment on that. Folks who may be watching may remember, it seems like we just made this appointment. And that is actually true, but Olivia was kind enough to fill a vacancy that ended. So that the term of the vacancy that she filled ended this year at the end of fiscal on June 30th. So this seems to be really quick. But we're now appointing her for a full 3-year term. So anyway, that's all I tried to say on that. Other comments? If not, we'll take a vote. Gary?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Catherine? Yes. Okay, moving on.
All right.
Yeah, go on.
So this is a Community Preservation Committee at large. A move to appoint Thomas Starr as a member of the Community Preservation Committee for a term beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Okay. Comments, questions? If not, we'll move to a vote. Gary?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Catherine? Yes. Unanimous. Thank you.
All right, this is Conservation Commission. Move to appoint Ken Whitaker, Leo Mastronzi, and Patrick Breen as Conservation Commission members for a term beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or questions? If none, we'll take a vote. Gary?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Catherine? Yes. Thank you.
Catherine, if I may,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I didn't get my hand raised quickly enough. Just for the public at home too, that are looking at these, anyone that has an underline under their name in the applicants, those are people subject for reappointment versus a new appointment, just for clarity.
There is a typo, but I think you probably will have it right on the appointment form with Ken Whitaker's name. Okay.
HW Cultural Council. Move to appoint Mary E. Ting as member of the Hamilton Wenham Cultural Council for a term beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Comments, questions? Not, move to a vote. Gary?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Catherine? Yes. Okay. Next.
Okay, Hamilton Wenham Joint Recreation. Move to appoint Daniel Curran as a member of the Hamilton Wenham Joint Recreation Committee for a term beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Comments, questions? Not, we'll move to a vote. Gary?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Catherine? Yes. Okay.
Okay, Open Space and Recreation Committee, got several here. Move to appoint Thomas Starr, Ernest Ashley, Mary E. Ting, Joan DeGeorge, Lou Randozzo, Vincent Fennell, and Ann Weeks as members of the Open Space and Recreation Committee for terms beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022.
Second.
That obviously is a committee that must turn over annually.
Hmm.
And Jackie?
So that was my question for the board while you're considering this appointment, is just to think about, this committee has now become a bit more of a standing committee with the adoption of the action plan. So it's a conversation for this summer if we want to amend the charge at any point to begin staggered terms for potentially a longer period of time. This is, I think, the fourth series of one-year appointments to this group, and it seems that it's going to be standing. So just something for you to consider as we kind of regroup after this appointment season.
Good point, I think, Jackie. They would probably agree.
Did we get a second?
Yes,
I
we
think
did.
we did. I think we're ready to vote. Gary,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Catherine, yes. That's unanimous. Again.
All right. So
Hmm.
I assume the 3 seats with 3-year terms of the first 3 is what we're deciding here. You want to make, should I make that motion first?
Looks like it looks like it allows, this motion allows for the 3 names to be in the first part of the motion.
All right.
Is that right?
So if I may, so you would move to appoint 3 of them, whoever, for the 3-year term, and then there's 1 seat for a 1-year term. So the names are just in order of they're just in the order of how I typed them. So there's no preference.
Right.
This is the order that they're typed. So it's up to the board, but you just need to do 3 and 1, 3 3-year and 1 1-year.
Well, then I'll move to appoint the incumbents who have served long and well. So move to appoint Michael Lucy, Dean Peterson, and Albert Wynn Dodge as Veterans Committee members for a term beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2024, and James Cummings to the same committee for a term beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. And a special welcome to James Cummings joining the committee here, hopefully. If there's a second.
Second.
Does anyone have any comments about the distribution of the way those were appointed, or the motion is?
I sort of do. With the new person coming in, I can't see the name, James Cummings. I think sometimes it might be easier to have a 3-year term. You know, the first you start to learn what you need to do, similar to my position on the select board. And then they get a little more active going through. I'm wondering if maybe we switch it around and give one of the incumbents a 1-year term and give the new person a full term of action. Thoughts?
So I don't have an issue with that, except for the fact that I would, before making that decision, I would be interested to speak to them. I didn't do this, to speak to the incumbents to see if any one of them would prefer a 1-year term.
That's a good idea.
So if
I may too, for the board's awareness, so this is a 1-year term only because we need to fulfill the end of a 3-year seat. So when we get to appointment cycles next year, it'll only be for 3-year terms again. This is just to fulfill a vacancy in a unexpired, in a term that already exists. So next year we'll be back to the 3-year terms for all members going for this committee.
So the term beginning July 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022, you're saying is the final year of someone else's term who left the committee.
Correct.
Right. Okay. That being said, actually, I guess knowing that it's a vacancy and the person will be an incumbent and have the ability to continue on, I think I'm okay with this, the way it was moved. Gary, your opinion? You okay with that?
Yes.
Did we convince you, Diane?
You did, sure. I just wanted to mention it, so that's good.
Well, it's good because it clarified it too for all of us, so appreciate that. But I guess we're ready for a vote for this motion. So it was seconded, right?
Yep.
I think. Okay, Gary, your vote.
Yes. Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And Catherine, yes.
All right, this is the Wenham Human Rights Committee. So move to appoint the Police Chief Kevin DiNapoli ex officio and JT John Glaster West to the Wenham Human Rights Committee for a term beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2024.
Second.
I guess I just have a question. I don't know why I'm just thinking about this, but why in that entire board are we having to reappoint Chief DiNapoli?
So originally when this committee was charged, Chief Perkins was the police chief and he had Deputy Chief DiNapoli as his designee. So this appoints the police chief as the police chief, which is always one of the ex officio members, or they could submit a designee to be appointed. So he's submitting himself as his own designee for this 3-year term, which now is actually going to cyclically align with his police contract also. So
Okay,
kinda
great.
syncs
Thank you
it all up for you.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there other questions on this? If not, we'll move to a vote. Gary?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Catherine? Yes. Congratulations to those folks.
Okay, zoning Board of Appeals let me see. So we're doing this in two steps then. This is for the move to appoint Anthony Fahary as a member and Amy Cooper as an associate member for a term beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2024.
A second.
Yes, if we vote affirmatively on this, we will now have a full zoning board and one associate, which is a really good position to be in because we've seen before the ZBA, for one reason or another, become unable to do its business because it needs a 3-member board and we had no associate. So that's the advantage to this particular Amy Cooper as an associate member. If there are no other comments or questions? If
Well,
not,
just perhaps this is a good time to appeal for, as you said, this is a critical associate position that they actually can fill in full-time for the other members on particular cases and so forth. So public at large out there, we really need those other 2 positions filled as well. My only comment.
we really do. So thank you for that. All right, ready for a vote then. Gary?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Catherine, yes. Okay.
All right. So you want to take this one, Catherine? So,
I'll take it. It's weird to make a motion to appoint yourself, but this is the Cape Ann, the new Veterans District that we've just joined, and we have the ability. Each town has one person who sits on this board, and it's sort of a quarterly meeting. It's written. The charge is written to be the chair of the Board of Selectmen or a designee. I use my executive decision to suggest that it might be much more useful to have a veteran sitting in this kind of advisory but policy making decision. So I'm going to make the motion that we move to appoint Gary R. Cheeseman as the designee for the Cape Ann Veterans District for a term beginning July 1, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022.
I second.
Comments, questions?
I have a comment.
Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
Tom has a comment. He can go first.
Diane first.
Go on, Diane.
So just about what you said, Catherine, I think Gary is the best person out of the 3 of us right now to be on that board, but I don't necessarily think it needs to be a veteran going forward. So I don't want people to think they have to be a veteran to be on the Veterans Committee and to assist in any veterans needs. So just so that people can hear that, that's just my thoughts.
I agree with you, Diane. The difference here is this is the Veterans District. So this is the big regional group. And you're right. It's written as the chair of the Board of Selectmen. So whoever is chair next year can do that, or decide to ask someone else to do it, or whatever. But this particular one is not open really to the public, but it is
Okay.
just for selectmen.
Mhm.
But okay, we'll take a
Tom.
vote. Oh, I'm
Tom,
sorry,
Tom.
Tom.
Sorry.
I'm
sorry.
so sorry. It's too hot for me. My brain isn't functioning.
One of my regrets is never meeting with you in public.
Oh, really? I know.
It's always been Zoom, so it's something I'll have to get used to. I've worked with all of you individually, but never as a group. What I want to say is, based on this, when Gary was the single select board member, and we were working with the Veterans Committee on whether we should switch into the new Cape Anne's district, whether it was going to be beneficial to us, which it is, and I appreciate all their efforts. Gary spent a lot of time working with the Veterans Committee, getting information, reviewing everything. So starting off for the first year, he's the perfect choice on this. So I also want to thank him for his efforts with the Veterans Committee and the Veterans Committee themselves for working with all of us to make this decision going forward. I think this is going to be very good for the veterans of our community.
Thank you for that, Tom. That's a good point. Good background. Okay, anything else? If not, we'll move to a vote. Gary?
gratefully, yes.
Thank you. Diane?
Yes.
And Catherine, yes. So we've made it to through the appointments for tonight. Not done with appointments completely, but making good progress. The next item in new business, which I guess I'll end up discussing briefly, is discussion feedback on the new meeting format. And this is really, Tom and staff and Tom and the board, I'm interested to hear, is this now our third meeting where we just switched up the format, standardized the format a little bit, with the same person or the same position always making the motions and seconding, and how we do the taking the votes and how things are introduced. So I'm open to comments first from the board. If we said that we would check back after a couple of meetings and decide if we wanted to continue with this or not, or yes, with some amendments. So I'll just ask Gary first, and then Diane, what do you think? Are we just working?
Yes, I think we seem to be flowing along pretty well with the pre-assigned duties, if you will, and prevents a lot of questions or interruptions. So I like it that we keep things moving.
Okay, Diane?
I agree with that as well. I think it's much smoother. It's easier for, I think, everybody to follow along.
Oh, thank you. I actually, chairing these meetings, find it easier as well. I think it's especially easier because we happen to be on Zoom, but it's some of these things are things that I've thought about for a long time, and I'm glad that they seem to be working. We have a couple of staff members, particularly Tom and Jackie, who are very involved with these meetings. Do you have any comments or concerns about this format?
Speaking for me, this seems to flow smoother. We seem to be not running over everybody at this point. And I think it allows enough time and comment for each of the 3 select board members to be involved in this. And I think it does help Jackie, and I'm sure it will help Ryan, basically formatting these. And if Nikki was still here, and Nikki also, formatting these meetings as we're going forward. Jackie?
So I think for me, it seems like you guys are having a better time, and that's really what this is about, is making it go more easily for you as the governing body. I will say something that I've added new for Gary's benefit as the motion maker is that even if there's no draft motion, like tonight, I put TBD on this because I didn't know if you wanted to vote on it, but otherwise I've been putting no action sought if there's not an actual vote. So if that's helpful, Gary, I'll keep doing that for whoever's the motion maker, just so that way, if there's a vote, it's like clear, yeah, we're going to be voting about this, or no, this is actually something that we're just looking for your feedback on. Is that helpful for you all as you're considering meeting items?
Yes, I think so. I mean, otherwise you're not waiting to see if there's another slide for the motion. So put it right on the same slide, whether it's what the action required is. It's good.
Great. So I would make a suggestion, if the board agrees, that we actually turn this format into a policy, I guess, if that's what it would be called, but to formalize it a little bit in some kind of a document that we can then vote on. I think it would be easier moving forward for people to have that. So if the board is okay with that, I'm going to ask the staff if they can make that a sub policy so that we have a select board process moving forward. Is that okay?
Sounds good to me. Select board
Diane?
As well.
number 3.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so moving on to the next new business. Discussion and potential vote on the status of Zoom meetings through September 7th, which is right after Labor Day 2021. Tom, do you want to kick this off and
Sure.
give it to whoever?
Yeah, thank you.
Please, thank you.
Okay. Now that the governor and the legislature has allowed an extension for video conferencing, this was a good time for our select board to look at this, how long that we want to continuing the use of video meetings. And what this discussion would be is whether we should continue through the summer, re-examine it in September, to basically state that all boards and committee meetings would be utilizing Zoom or other video applications for boards and committees for our community through September 7th. Towns are looking at this and looking going forward. I'm actually seeing meetings that I'm having, like this morning we had with the North Shore Coalition, where you literally got 12 communities or so in one room versus all of us driving up to Gloucester, going in City Hall, spending an hour and a half there, and then spending another 45 minutes going back and forth. So communities and groups are starting to see the use of Zoom meetings. And I think there's going to be further discussion about maybe possibly making this more of a permanent option than just right now, just leaving it as a temporary option while communities get their meeting rooms in place and trying to go back to public meetings or doing hybrid versions. So I would recommend to the board, when you have your discussion, that we continue through September 7th.
Okay, questions or comments by the board on this recommendation, Gary?
Well, I think we ought to continue them primarily because I think it allows greater public access. I know a lot of people might be deterred by the trek up to town hall to sit at a meeting when they have other responsibilities with kids and so forth at home. So I think this makes it a lot easier for the public. And I think continuing at least through September gives us a couple of months to look at the technology that might be available for the meeting room at town hall. So we might move to some sort of hybrid of the boards and committees actually being in place, but allowing other outside members to actually Zoom in. Jackie's got some info on that.
Yeah, looks like it.
I would like to give the board a quick update. I've been working with Bill Melville, and actually we started last week on some technology upgrades to the Selectmen's meeting room, and those will continue through the beginning of July. So by the time that we're talking about the end of August, early September, all of those upgrades will have time to, the installation will be finished, as well as us for some capacity to do some testing, with the end goal being that when you do return in person, all of the boards and committees, the meetings that are normally recorded and live on HWCam, or even for a special occasion live on HWCam, will continue to have the Zoom component so that folks who do not wish to return to in-person with us, but would still like to engage, can be on Zoom, whether that's the public or a consultant or something like that. So I'll keep the board updated as you meet throughout the summer on that technology upgrade. We're also looking at other technology upgrades throughout the building with our phone system and other technology, so that when we come back, we can come back as in the 21st century as possible.
Thank you for that, Jackie. I know there's been a lot of discussion about how that it's not going, we couldn't do this instantly anyway, and that there's hardware and software and training, et cetera, involved, and a fair amount of staff. Diane, did you get a chance to say anything about this? I'm sorry.
I didn't, but I do think we should continue with the Zoom, and I would like to try to move towards a hybrid, because I know the boards and committees would want to meet in person, and the audience could be in Zoom. But when we do go to hybrid, it should be clear that the board and committee members should be attending in person, in my mind, and the public would be Zooming for the most part. Is that what you guys are thinking?
I think that's right. I think I need to talk a little bit. The logistics of how this would actually work, especially as a hybrid, is not completely clear to me. So I kind of like to see it, but I agree in general. If we're going to have a board meeting in person, that we all ought to be in person. Although I presume this would give us the ability, as we did with remote participation, to have, again, I don't know the logistics, but one person on Zoom if they physically cannot be at the meeting.
Mhm.
I don't even know I think the legislation, at least at this point, still allows for that.
If I may, can I
Yeah.
answer the legal part of that?
Mhm.
The extension of the Zoom would allow people to continue remote participation until April if we wanted to, encourage our board and committees to be fully in person as possible for Wenham, but they still have the option to be remote through April of 2022. And even, outside of Zoom times, COVID times, folks can participate remotely, just that you couldn't chair a meeting and you have to have quorum physically present. So I think unless you want to make a vote of something to be more stricter than the legislature from September of 2021 to April of 2022, we would encourage people to come in person for the boards and then allow the public to be hybrid. But if you wanted to require that, you would have to have a vote, and we'd work with council on whether, I think elected officials obviously have a little bit different than appointed. But I think the goal is to utilize the summer to get as technologically savvy as possible. And if we feel like we need spacers or, a different physical setup of the room downstairs, so people are comfortable come in person if they're on a board, and then can choose to come in person or stay on Zoom for remote participation if they're the public. But this just gives us the time and the capacity to do all of those things well. And there, I've also heard it's been very mixed feedback, because some boards and committees are really, interested in returning to person or returning to a hybrid. And there's some boards that want to stay on Zoom forever. I think there's no solution right now that's going to make everyone happy forever, but at least this gives us some capacity and some time to get the technology up and running, make sure all the staff are trained, offer a training for our committee chairs, and make sure that people feel like they have all the technological know-how for these hybrid setups, so that everything goes smoothly for them in September for their meetings.
Okay, any other comments or questions on that? If not, Gary, I think we're ready for a motion.
All right. Move to extend the use of Zoom or other video conferencing application for all board and committee meetings for the town of Wenham through September 7th, 2021.
Second.
Okay, unless there are any last minute things, I will ask for a vote. Gary?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Catherine? Yes. And thank you in advance to all the staff who are going to be consumed with figuring this one out. We'll continue to discuss it as the months go on.
So can I just ask a
Okay.
question now, based on what we just voted on? I'm sorry, I just got confused in my head. So we just voted that all meetings will still be using Zoom, no in-person meetings? Is that
through
correct?
September, through September,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
while we figure it all
Figure
out.
out. Yeah,
Right.
thank
Catherine,
you.
I think Margaret was trying to raise her hand. I saw her.
Oh, see, and I
Hand
can't
raise
see
function.
everyone on the screen, but hi, Margaret. Feel
Hi,
Feel
Catherine,
free.
thank you. I just wonder, I've had some of my boards and committees express a desire to get back to in-person meetings. Suppose the planning board really wanted to go in person, would the select board have to approve that or to use the room downstairs? If that was the case, I'm not saying it will be, but just if they as an elected board chose to do that.
I think this motion is intended to cover all use of that room
Okay,
or any in-person meeting in town hall, and
Okay.
not for so much until September, not so much partly policy, but partly the staffing and the technological pieces that are sort of in process. So
Right.
I think we would have to be involved if someone wanted. I understand people would like to get hybrid, but the idea here is to make sure that we're all ready. And
Mhm.
so the best probably way to do that is to probably go through this board.
Okay, all right, very
So
good.
encourage them to talk to us. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay, now we have skipping over what, okay. So I believe the next item, G, thank you, it's up on the screen. Review and potential approval of a fairly simple couple of revisions to the Veterans Committee charge to update the new veteran services provider. And Tom, I'll ask you to start this off and give it to whoever else may have information. I lost Tom.
Okay.
Are you there?
Here we are. Since we are switching from Essex to the Cape Ann Veterans District, we have requested that the board look and review the charge for the updating our charge to provide to utilize Cape Ann's Veterans District as part of the Veterans Committee charge, because it's based on the old Essex District. So this is under new business, and if you wish to do it this evening, but I know generally you like to review it and have it available for your next meeting. Though we are going into the new Veterans District effectively July 1st.
So just a question before we go to discussion. So there's the changes that actually changed the physical Cape Ann Veterans District to the right name. There's been one other proposed amendment that I think is fairly straightforward, and we may be able to vote this. It's not the first time we've seen the whole thing, but there is an amendment that talks about applying funding, which I think is new, and I'm not sure who would like to speak to that, but it says
I think
Veterans Committee. Gary, are you?
submitted those today. Catherine's why I got
Yeah, it
today,
seems,
so-
you want to speak to that, Gary? Because it
Sure.
seems
So I think
right.
the one is to simply update the fact that there is more than the single trust fund account. So that adds the War Memorial Fund as a responsibility of the committee. That's the money from the original War Memorial construction. And then there's the separate Perkins Fund for the continuing care and maintenance, which was already mentioned in the charge. The second change too is to allow the committee to request through the normal budget cycle for limited funds for administrative purposes. We've found over the last couple of years that we've tried to put the money or the face of the money in the right place where it's actually being used by the right person. And so instead of the Veterans Committee kind of mooching off Nikki Roebuck's accounts, that I think we should give the Veterans Committee access to requesting small administrative funds for the mailing purpose and so forth. That's the only intent of the change.
I just have one question about that, and I think it's a language or it's a typographical situation. Do we have a Veterans War Memorial gift, or is it a Veterans War Memorial gift fund?
I
The
think we should,
language as amended just says gift.
yeah, I think we'll, I believe it's fund is the proper term. Probably need to check with Jamie as to what the actual account says. But I think it's the War Memorial Gift Fund.
I believe it's the War Memorial Gift account,
Okay.
because I
Account.
don't believe they're collecting new money. It's from when the War Memorial was initially done, and then they left the money that was left over from the project there for new pavers as additional veterans pavers were purchased post the main memorial being completed. So I think it's War Memorial Gift account, Gary. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, I think that is right. Diane, what do you think of
I
these?
think it all sounds right.
edits?
It looks good to me. I read it this afternoon.
Given that we've seen this before and that the changes are fairly straightforward, do we feel comfortable voting this one tonight and having it in place for July 1st when it goes
Definitely.
into effect?
Yeah.
Okay, so we need a motion then, please, Gary.
Okay, move to approve the Veterans Committee charge dated June 29th, 2021.
Second,
Just one more comment, we'll change the word gift to, or add the word account at the end of that, right?
Yes, as amended.
Okay, so I'm ready for a vote, I guess. Gary,
Yes,
Diane,
yes.
Catherine, yes.
and if I could have one more word, Catherine?
Sure.
This is probably a appropriate point to say thank you to Bill Wilson that really did the groundwork on the change of districts and continues to be the main focal point on daily events between the Veterans Committee and the district.
Thank,
Just want to throw that shout
thank
out
you,
there.
Bill. Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Bill. Okay. So if that's that, we'll move on to old business, and we're still talking policies. We have some further, I guess, slight amendments to the appointment policy, revised a bit. We spoke about some edits last week, but they were not in the policy that we had in front of us.
Okay.
But they are correct now. In the packet that we received this evening, does have the final update. And I don't know what we want to do with this. I will just say that what's new tonight I can speak to because it was I suggested, or I added it last 2 weeks ago, when we talked about this policy. We talked about having a section of the policy that spoke to the process for appointments. It did make it more than one page, I'm sorry, but there was some acknowledgement of listing all the names in the agenda of people who would put in applications, and how putting them all in nomination and speaking about all the applicants. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The sixth paragraph is what we spoke about last week, but is now actually in the appointment policy that we have in our packets tonight. So I don't know if people have comments about that, but let's go. Gary, what are you thinking?
Looks good to me, but I do have a question on the second page on the timing, or it's just the wording about the timing, where it says that the town administrator will provide the new appointments to the town clerk's office within 1 business week, i.e. 5 days. But then the next sentence says the town clerk will notify the member within 48 business hours of the appointment, which seems like the second day after the board meets. So maybe we just need to change that wording that, after the town clerk receives the info, the town clerk has 2 additional days to notify, if I read that correct.
If I may, I was getting feedback from all of you throughout the weekend and week on this from the version you got on your packet on Friday with the changes from your last meeting. So I would like to be able to give the person in the TA office at least 48 business hours the day after the meeting. You know, depending on when you meet, if we can do 48 business hours, and then for the TA's office to get it down to the clerk, and then get the clerk another 48 business hours after that to do their thing. I think if you overly regiment, like I think there's a balance here of wanting to have good etiquette of appointments for the people applying to these positions and following up with them quickly and letting them come in and get sworn in. But I will be mindful of the fact that, with small exception, this year being an exceptional year, a remarkable year of time, most of the time you do get these done in June. These folks don't start until July 1. So I think 48 hours for the TA office and then 48 hours for the clerk makes sense for off-cycle appointments for people who are trying to get on. And obviously, like, we try to do this as quickly as possible, but I think if we overly regiment the timeline, it just makes it really hard on staff because you don't know what else is on their plate on a given day. For example, if you had met last night and I had to do this today in the other office, for example, you know, we had a paving project today and robocalls and things that are like the end of the fiscal year. So I think just giving folks, and I don't want to speak for Diane, but I know she's lived with this. It's a lot of paper to push and get through. So we want to be really, you know, mindful and thankful for our applicants, but if we can give each of those offices at least, you know, 2 business days to do their parts, that would be really appreciated, just because there's only one person in either of those offices who are going to usually be doing that activity. So.
No, my point was, I think is this intended to be sequential events?
Yeah, it should be 48 hours for the TA office to get it downstairs and 48 hours for the clerk to reach out to the committee chair and to the person saying, hi, I have your paperwork. Do you want to come on down?
Right. That's fine. I'm not worried about the
Okay,
time.
yeah.
It's just the wording that, you know, we need to perhaps just prep it up a little bit. So that's clear that after the town clerk receives the spreadsheet notification, then the second 48-hour clock starts, whatever.
Right. Is it at this moment, who is informing the successful candidates? Is it the town clerk or is it the TA's office?
The
People
town clerk,
say-
the town
It
clerk.
is the town clerk. Okay.
So the process that we have, that
That would
we've
be
been
helpful.
doing, is the select board makes the appointments. The TA's office takes those names, puts it on a certificate. The certificate is what goes down to the town clerk's office. Thereby, the town clerk just needs to organize all the things that they need to do to notify the people, and they have something to sign and make it official. So I think it's not really a spreadsheet that's going down, it's a certificate that's made by the TA's office. And so if we say within a week, I mean, we don't have to even be that specific. Within a week, the applicants will be notified by the town clerk with all the things that they need to do. Maybe that makes it easier.
I think, Diane, if I may, that does make sense. I think someone had submitted in their edits the 48 hours, and I think it's really lovely to be that accommodating. But I think, especially when we're doing these bulk appointments, for the person to get all this, there's just so many changes that come even like up until a meeting, to have, you know, all of those done and then get all of you in right now on Zoom. But even in real time, we struggle to get all of those documents signed in a, you know, the night of the
Right. I don't think that it's been an issue that we've been late in getting people notified, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that the process that we had underneath the policy has been working out really well. And I guess I would make it more general and say that it would be a certificate that town administrator makes and gets it to the town clerk, and the town clerk will notify the applicant and take it from there.
So the notion or the idea of a master spreadsheet, that edit has come from within the select board. I guess some of this stuff is, you know, operational. So if, you know, to some degree, that paragraph a little bit needs to, at least the transfer of, is it a certificate, is it a spreadsheet, is a discussion that probably needs to happen between the town administrator's office and the town clerk's
Right.
office.
Going forward, they can do that whatever way they want, but what we found to work out best, since I've worked with a few people up there, was they keep a spreadsheet up in the town administrator's office to keep track of all the appointments and all the committees. To word merge or whatever into a certificate allows the town clerk to have something official made, signed by all of the select board, because that is important too, and then signed by the applicant. And then you can keep track of the open meeting law, the ethics, and now we're going to add something else to that docket. So it's worked out very well, I think. If Jackie can speak to that too.
Well, I think that's not what we're trying to change. It's just, I think there were members of the board who wanted there to be a time clock on when we notify those
Okay.
applicants. And I think that's where typically it's the clerk, because we wait for the certificates get made up, the board all comes in and signs them, and then the signed certificates go to the clerk. And that's when the clerk gets to say, hey, congratulations, you've been appointed, come on down. Because otherwise we're doing kind of two notifications, like the, hey, you're appointed, and then the, hey, you can come on and get sworn in. So I think that's typically where there's been one communication of, hi, you've been appointed and you can come on down. We're ready for you to get sworn in. And I think the feedback I was getting on the draft was that we wanted to let people know when they're appointed, but in doing so, it creates two notifications. One, hey, you've been appointed, and two,
Yes.
you need to come get sworn in. And I don't know that with one person in each of those offices, I don't know that we need to double notify people. I think the goal would be to get the stuff down to the town clerk front, like the certificates. And I know it sounds like we're talking about something that shouldn't take a lot of time, but if you're, doing the clerical of it, and I know Diane knows, it is not a very fast thing to do, because things change during the meeting, things happen. There's, you really have to do each one individually to make sure it's correct. It's not a mail merge, because there's just so many dead spaces. So I think the feedback you had given was like, we should be able to let people know the next day they're appointed. But in reality, that's going to most people that have been with us on appointed boards and committees for a long time are going to think that then they can come down and get sworn in right away. And that's not the case, because we can't swear them in until you all sign the certificates. So that's where I wanted to have your feedback again tonight, because I think if we can say just 1 week generally versus the 48 business hours that someone had sent in, I think that just makes a lot of operational sense, because we're starting to like litigate a policy where you guys are making these policy decisions of people, but we're really starting to litigate how these two offices are doing their day-to-day business. And I just want, this is not the only thing on either of their desks. So I want to make sure we give them the appropriate time, or they're just always going to be missing your deadline that you've given them, I guess.
So I hear all of this, and I think certainly to do this, have it one time frame rather than two, all makes sense. But I need to push back, I think, a little, having been on both sides of being appointed and being an appointee. I think it's important, if you've taken the time to put in a letter of interest and perhaps talk to maybe 3 select persons, and you may not even know that the appointment, when the appointments are actually happening, which meeting. And I've run into situations where people hear from, their friends, hey, or someone else, hey, by the way, did you hear you were appointed or not appointed? So I would like us to, I think, Jackie, that I'm pretty sensitive, and I think I understand the staff constraints. And I don't want to provide an extra step necessarily, but I do think it's important for people who have been appointed to one of these boards and committees to know as soon as possible. And I really would like it to be within a couple of days, 72 hours or whatever, that a meeting has occurred, they were talked about, and there has been a vote. So I don't.
Can I make a suggestion to that point then?
Sure. Yeah.
I hear you on that, and that's where I don't want to make our appointees feel like they're not special and important, because they are, and this is an important part of governing. If I may use a suggestion, we had the FinCom appointing group last week that met, and what really worked well for that group is that the chair, for lack of a better word, because that's a funny group and they don't really elect a chair, but so Jim Purdy took the lead as the chair of the FinCom of that group, and he very nicely emailed all of the applicants hey, we voted you, or hey, we're super sorry we didn't vote you the night of the meeting. And he, as the kind of, for lack of a better word, chair of that group, did that initial notification. And now I'm waiting for the certificates to get signed. And then that'll go down to the town clerk's office. And then the town clerk's office will send their notification to that group the way our process normally works. The chairman of that group did that just because he wanted to provide that courtesy. So is that something where, do we feel like that's something where the board could choose, depending on who we're appointing, that maybe they're willing to make that initial, because it's you all's appointment and you're all the ones talking to those people. So if that's like an extra step we want to add, you know, it's probably very nice for those people to receive that communication from Jim Purdy directly, because he could elaborate on the conversation and the discussion, because he was a member having that discussion, instead of a very cold email from a staff member saying, hi, you're appointed, or hi, you're not. You know, we have that kind of time to be thoughtful and say, you know, we really appreciated your application. It'll be very clinical in that there's going to be a lot of those to send out if it's on staff. So that's just another suggestion I'm making. I also think too, I know that the goal was to get this done because we're in appointment season, but I also know that at some point this summer, you'll have a new TA, someone new potentially in that role. I'm kind of helping fill the gaps. You know, I do still talk to Nikki. I've covered for her this time of year before. But I'm the stand-in. So it may be worth waiting on this particular section until, you know, you have someone in that role more permanently. You know, I'm not going to live or die by this policy because it's really not part of my usual portfolio. So with that, I'll mute my Zoom for now.
Well, the
Oh,
part of
Tom,
this,
me and you again.
okay, let me just one thing. So the point of this, I agree that we can take our time and get it right in terms of the inside town hall process. You know, what happens after we make an appointment, from the time that the Board of Selectmen make the appointment to the time that the person is sworn in. So I have no problem taking a little time doing that. That one paragraph. I do, though, think that the rest of that process, the first two paragraphs, should and probably, if we agree, can be voted on tonight. So that would I think put aside for further discussion and input the section on that just starts with appointments made will be documented by and ends with code of conduct. We just put that paragraph aside for now and vote the rest of it. Because you're right, Jackie, it is an internal process. However, it is a very out-facing internal process. And as much as we don't want to shift responsibility necessarily to the staff, I'm not sure in all cases it makes sense to shift responsibility that's more logical for staff to do to a board, an elected or appointed board. So clearly we need to talk more about that with a few more people who are not here yet, or who are doing the job. Tom, I'm sorry, I'm going on this.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Speaking from one who's been doing this for way too many years, 30 plus years, generally the select board is not the one who's notifying the board and committee for a number of reasons. And it's generally the team in the TA's office. Part of that is making sure it's coordinated in the central area, versus you may have a chair of the board who's very meticulous, who may get this out, you know, the next day, and you may have a chair who may not be touching it for 7 days, 8 days, may forget about it. I generally like having the responsibility in a central place for the notification. Usually when we sent it out, it would be the usual, you know, good afternoon, you know, on behalf of the select board or the Board of Selectmen, we are pleased to notify you. And, you know, I mean, it might sound somewhat clinical, but at least it controlled it. Knowing how it got out to the right people, and it got out to the correct addresses. So I can't speak for Ryan, but I would still prefer that it remains centralized within the TA's office for original notification.
Gary, did you?
Well, I was going to
something
say,
to-
why don't we, are you ready to accept a motion that adopts everything but holds the one paragraph in abeyance?
Yeah, until we have, that we can get further input. Yep.
Is that good with you, Diane, so we can move on, or?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So I move to approve the Town of Wenham Select Board appointment policy effective June 29th, 2021, from the draft dated June 29th, 2021, holding the, in abeyance, the one paragraph, starting with appointments made by the Select Board, et cetera, down to the code of conduct, period.
Second,
Okay, guess we've had enough discussion on that unless someone has the last word. If not, we'll continue to work with the staff to come up with that paragraph. And we'll vote the rest. Gary,
Yes.
Diane,
yes.
Catherine, yes. Okay, a little more work to be done on that. We have the next policy is the annual calendar for the policy, the select board policy book update. Tom, do you want to introduce this, or do we pretty much all know what this is?
I think we're pretty much all set with that.
Okay. Let's just take a motion and then we'll see if there's any
All right.
conversation. Gary.
Move to approve the Town of Wenham Select Board appointment.
Oh,
Need
whoops.
another one.
Annual calendar.
Slide.
Yeah, it does say
Move to
appointment, but
approve the Town of Wenham annual calendar policy effective June 29th, 2021, from the draft dated June 25th, 2021.
Second,
okay. Does anyone have any comments or questions on this?
no, so it's just a general paragraph saying that we will organize the calendar based on finance committee and deadlines, et cetera, every year.
Right. I think it codifies the fact that we will have a calendar. And in this way, I think that's the point. Anything else? If not, we'll move to a vote. Thank you for changing that language in real time, Jackie. So Gary, your
Yes.
vote? Diane?
Yes,
Catherine, yes. Okay. So we have the first reading of a code of conduct policy here, and thanks to everyone for their input. We don't have, as it says, no action sought. Would anyone like to introduce this, Gary or Jackie, and then we can have some discussion? No,
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So the code of conduct, we
I
initially
meant Tom,
envisioned
actually. Yeah, or Gary.
as select board policy number one. It's, the basis, the starting point of how we're going to conduct ourselves, and hopefully all the other committees and boards in the town of Wenham. And this has been mostly adopted from other longstanding examples from Maya and other towns. So I think it just puts in writing the way we would hope people would behave as far as the board members in relation to each other, board members with other boards and the staff, and then board members with the public at large. So it just puts in writing a kind of a line in the sand, if you will, that says, this is how we should conduct business. And if you cross that line, you can expect to have some repercussions.
Tom or Jackie, having put this together, do you have anything further before we continue to make our comments?
Sure. One of the keys here is basically makes the town administrator the point person on, setting up the investigation, whether you bring in an outside party or not, and does not require an additional vote to do that. So if an official is accused of violating our anti-harassment and anti-discrimination policy, we refer the matter to investigation regarding this, and that I do not need, or Brian does not need, or whoever's in the seat doesn't need any authority to begin the investigation process. But if you're having an outside party doing an investigation, They report their findings back to the TA, and then the TA shares the findings with that appropriate elected official. And then if any action is taken, that's further down the road. But it does give you a detailed standard for reporting and taking action on the violation.
Okay, this is our first reading, so if there are further comments, Gary, do you have anything on this version that you'd like to comment on or amend?
I just question, has this gone by town council as well?
I don't believe it has.
Right.
I will say that we've borrowed this from other towns. This is not anything that we've done directly from scratch. We've pulled different things from different communities based on the intentions that the board had, but I hate to spend money of having council review it if you completely hated it. So that's why we want to do this first
Right,
reading.
yeah.
So as we kind of go through, and we did the same thing with the update to the anti-discrimination policy, to get your initial feedback prior to going to council, because if it's something that is not, if you give us your intention and we don't meet that intention, just so, I would rather then go to council with the draft that makes sense for all of you, than a draft that you're gonna see it and be like, why did you spend that money and do that? And now we dislike this a lot and we're not gonna vote for it. So after tonight, we'll get this lined up with council. And
That sounds good.
also-
I like it as written. There's probably some tweaks in the years ahead, but I think this is a good solid starting point for effort.
Gary, if I may too, we also will have this reviewed by the Human Rights Committee that we're on there. James Gowdy, who's interning with us for this summer, has been helping me on some policy update work, and he and I will be joining them on their July 12th meeting to get feedback on this and a couple of other policies.
Diane, have you got any comments or
Just a
additions
quick
that you'd like to-
question. I thought is there a change on this one? I think Jackie had mentioned something when she sent out the renewed packet that there were some changes.
There was just a typo because I had a typo of in the third section, section C. Gary caught it this morning. I wrote like a majority is a majority, which is
Yeah.
true, but not really relevant for you guys. So we wrote
Okay,
if
so
the
Very
direction
profound.
is if the yeah, majority is a majority. So it's that section C about
I see.
the
Mhm.
direction
I
is
see it.
given by
Yeah.
got it.
Okay, I get it. No, I think it states everything that we would want to see. So looks good to me.
Okay, so I'll be the caboose on this train. It is a really good job, and I think it pretty much states everything. I do have a couple of comments, and there's suggestions. I think the purpose as stated, that purpose seems very specific to public discourse. And then under section 3, code of conduct is a more general sort of statement of what is expected. I think that those two, that the code of conduct, all town elected and appointed officials are expected to act. And the first paragraph could actually be together as the purpose of the document, which is the code of conduct, because it goes beyond just respectful discourse as stated in the purpose to the actual, actions, honesty, conscientiousness, reasonability. So I would just combine those two as part of the purpose. I made a suggestion that I'd like to recant, if I may. I had, in speaking with Jackie and James earlier, I suggested that this code of conduct would be applicable to appointed and elected officials and staff. When I read it again over the weekend, it's really not meant for staff. There's a whole nother set of policies that are staff policies. So it feels to me, if I may take that back, and I would suggest that we just strike that and staff, and this policy and all its sections shall apply to every appointed and elected officials. So that's my second comment. Oh, the majority one. Oh, in section B, the third bullet, which I completely agree with, except for one word, says recommends to refrain from making statements or promises as to how you will vote. And it says on quasi judicial matters that will come before the boards and committees. I don't think that quasi judicial is necessary. It may be, and I'm willing to be corrected, but I don't think it's necessary, and it might be too constricting. I think it's important how not to make promises on how you vote on any matter that comes before your particular board or committee. So I would strike the words quasi judicial. I think that was probably specific to a particular type. And I'm almost done. So I'm interested, these are the last two things are policy things, and the next one I'm interested to hear from the board on. It says under, I guess, distribution and education, that each individual shall sign a statement that they have read the policy, and the fact that this is very small on my screen, in the event that a member declines to sign the form, that fact shall be noted by the town clerk on the form. I may be feeling a little rigid about this particular policy, but it's a code of conduct policy. And I feel as if someone is unwilling to sign this, meaning they're unwilling to follow the tenets that are in there, I think that the consequences needs to be a little stronger than, oh, well, we'll put your name on a list of people who haven't signed it. So my suggestion on that would be that people who don't sign it may, and I don't know the wording exactly, but that their appointment could be nullified. I don't know if we legally have the right, but that would be a question for council. If the select board, as a member of the select board, if I appoint someone or part of the majority that appoints someone and they don't agree with this and refuse to sign it, I think I would like for the select board to have the option at that point to nullify that appointment.
Can I make a clarification on that?
Sure.
Because I think you bring up a really good point. But I'll check with council. I think that's going to be relevant only to the appointed folks. I don't think,
Yes.
but we'll still encourage elected officials to sign it. And if, then I think that particular procedure is for elected officials. If they decline to sign it, they still can serve, but then there's a public, if they decline to sign it. So that might be just better suited to, I'll just kind of re-clarify.
Yes.
Versus elected, unless the board doesn't want that section at all, but based on, I think that's what that was intended to be for.
Okay, yeah, and I understand that there's a difference in our ability to have an effect there.
Right.
Yes, Gary.
Okay.
And then Tom.
I think, it's a very important statement in there, and I think the request for the town clerk to note that it was not signed, as you say, applies more to the appointed thing. But I would think that too, that we want to have that on the official record, even if an elected official does not sign. Perhaps we can't do anything about it, but it can't, I would want it on the record so that later on, it can't just be said, well, I never knew about that, or I didn't get around to doing that. I think it should be a yes or no, sign or not, and go with the consequences if you're elected official.
I agree with Gary on that. Tom, did you have something?
Yes, trying to make your life a little easier. Besides agreeing with Gary and his statement on the appointed officials, to maybe save you a step of going through a removal process if you appoint someone and they fail to sign, that in your when you make the motion to appoint someone, that pending, that should be in the part of the motion, pending signature or pending signing the statement of the code of conduct. Because if they didn't sign the code of conduct in your motion, therefore they didn't meet the actions of your appointment, so you don't have to probably go back and remove them from that position.
Yeah,
Just thought when you go back through council.
that sounds like a good idea.
Yes,
Gary and
like that,
Betty.
like that.
Yeah,
Make
yeah.
it conditional on signing.
Right. And then
That's a
the last thing, and
Can I ask a clarification on that?
sure.
Is it possible if the board would agree that we codify that in the policy? Because I think if we have to depend on that being the draft motion every time we appoint somebody, we might forget it over time. Whereas if it's codified in the policy that all appointments are considered, any appointments made where the appointee does not sign off on the code of conduct are then considered null and void upon refusal. Some kind of language like that, we can work that out with KP, rather than having to depend on us doing that every time we make the motion to appoint somebody. I'm just thinking of future appointments
Yeah,
like
that's
we're
good.
going through.
Yeah, I see that, but then there will be some people who won't know that that's a consequence because they won't see this document until after they're appointed. But I see your point. That would make
We
it
can also
clear for years.
put
You know,
on the board and committee page, like so you
yeah,
elected or excuse me, so you want to be appointed, and we can have the code of conduct right on that volunteer opportunities.
yes,
So like as they're looking at the opportunities, they can look at the code of conduct as well, and we can kind of point them to it. I don't know if that would help that. I just see us falling into the trap if we don't, if we have to do it in the motion.
Diane.
I think if you put that on the committee's page, and it can even be a check off, I've read and agreed to, before we even look to appoint somebody, that's really important. I mean, we want to make sure that somebody that is going to serve our community is definitely going to be able to follow this code of conduct. So it could be in that whole process,
Right.
the application.
And doing that, I think, and then putting a statement in here to your point, Jackie, that if they don't sign it, their appointment is not effective. I think all of that will work, and it doesn't necessarily for now have to be in every motion.
So, and also another benefit of doing it that way, it takes a little bit of work that we're now putting back onto the town clerk's office, and we should probably speak with her about this, because this is another thing to keep a track of. And so if we do it in the application process, it's not something that we're going to have to add to the spreadsheet. Did they sign this, that, and the other thing?
Okay.
The
So
only thing, mention, the only thing we're going back and forth, and this can be worked out behind the scenes back to the board, is when the board puts it in a motion, it becomes part of the legal process. Is that you've made it, when you make the appointment, you've made it as a legitimate term and condition versus signing after the fact. Just a thought to be discussed, that's all.
Well,
okay.
and if I can counterpoint you, Tom, I think, and to follow up from something Diane said, I think the intention was to work with the clerk so that when someone's signing off on OML and did they do OML, did they do ethics, we had just add a column to that spreadsheet, because I would imagine if somebody is really caring about the code of conduct outside of regular annual appointments, it's going to be something that we want our publicly records requestable indication. Did you say yes or no to signing it? You know, I think if the term and condition is you sign it, but then we have, I think for ease of continuity across elected and appointed, if it's all in that same spreadsheet of did you do open OML, did you do ethics, did you conflict of interest, did you do code of conduct, then for anyone, whether they're elected or appointed, that informational point for the public is in the same location. If they're like wanting to go look and say, did everyone that's elected sign the code of conduct, then there's one publicly records requestable item instead of having to go back to the minutes of every select board meeting of which anyone's ever appointed. So I think from a public perspective, I don't know if that makes sense to others.
I'm going to suggest, I see both points, all sides of this. I see, Jackie, what you're saying, but I also agree with Tom's point that if we do it at the time of appointment, then we don't have to go back and redo something. So I'm going to suggest that you internally take this offline and have a little bit more discussion about that particular thing and see where that goes. The last thing, and I think just for us to think about, because we've taken a lot of time on this, the whole notion of enforcement, I totally agree with the notion or the idea on this, that the town administrator has the authority to have the investigation and without seeking any further agreements. I am not sure, I feel as if after any investigation or examination is complete, then I'm feeling like the select board needs to be the group that is, again, for central purposes involved. So if it's someone in an appointed committee that has done something that's gone through an investigation and the town administrator has requested this, and the town administrator may speak with that person or the chair of that board, I think it's going to be important for the town administrator to share that with the select board at that point, and not take it to its final conclusion just through the town administrator without including the select board. So that's just a general philosophical comment on this, on that paragraph. So, but I'm open to anyone who has a different idea, or if council has a different version or a different opinion.
So let's work a little bit more on this over the next 2 weeks and
Yeah,
try again. How's that?
yeah, I think so. That sounds good. This is one of the hardest ones, I think, maybe one of the most important, and I really appreciate the staff's patience with going back and forth and wanting to get this right. Okay, moving along. The next thing on our agenda is something I believe that we discussed at our last meeting. It's the further discussion and potential approval of the retainer proposal from town council.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Tom, and if there's anything new, take it away.
Yes, there is one thing new. If we had this in place, it wouldn't have cost you for those review of the conduct policy. It would have been covered by the $42,000 retainer.
There you go.
This is a one-year trial. A number of communities have done this. I've used it in the past. You'll be billed on a monthly basis. Any items that are not covered by the retainer are basically covered by their hourly fee. One thing that Jackie had brought up, and if I was permanent, I can tell you how it would have run with Ryan, I'm not certain. Jackie had brought up the issue of, yes, there's an hourly fee if you utilize labor counsel in the actual negotiating process. I've used the labor counsel in my career literally once, with the exception when I came here and it was started with the library, of actually sitting at the table. Labor counsel generally, at least in my work, has not been sitting at the table. It's been the TA, maybe the HR director or the assistant TA. So generally with the three contracts coming up, I would expect them not to be sitting at the table. I would expect them to review the proposals, maybe give some recommendations, and then submit it to the negotiating team. And the negotiating team would be the one that would be sitting down at the table with the three unions. So I would not expect that the aspect of collective bargaining would be that much higher outside of the retainer.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about this?
Yeah.
Gary? I was encouraged. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said, looks good.
Okay.
Money, hopefully.
This is one coming from New York is a detriment because, you know, for me, there can be no spaces in between words. So sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you. I think that I was encouraged by the fact that the budgeting has been done the way it's been done, and there's going to be oversight over this for the first year. It certainly seems to make a lot of sense, but it'll be nice to see it play out, you know, conservatively in experience. My one point, if we actually get to the ability to sign this, if we vote this tonight, is since we are in between town administrators essentially at the moment, and if this is ready to be signed or when it's ready to be signed, I think we the select board should be the signature have our signatures on this document rather than sending it to someone else for signature, just so that we're kind of the steady, the more stable group at the moment. The hopefully is going to be around for a little while. I said that, and then I thought, oh, I hope that's true. Anyway, that's my only comment. I'm ready for a motion if folks are.
Okay. One thing, Catherine,
Yeah.
and this is for transparency and informational basis for the board. This does not mean that you will not know how many hours have been spent on each item. When I've had the retainer before, you will still have a breakdown of all the items that they worked on. Unless they've changed it, I don't believe they will. We'll give you the hours, but you'll have an NC next to that particular item. Let's say they spent 9 hours working on town meeting prep. It will say 9 hours Wenham Town Meeting Prep NC. So you will know where their time has been expended and for how long.
I think that's really important. And I would imagine they're so detailed about that. I would imagine that they would continue to do that. That's important information for us to keep track. Okay. Gary.
All right,
Motion.
so move to approve the retainer proposal from KP Law as presented in April 13th, 2021 memo and effective on July 2021 to be signed by the select board.
Second,
Okay. Further comments? If not, we'll take a vote. Gary,
Yes,
Diane,
yes.
Catherine, yes. Thank you for that, Tom. Is one thing that in the long list of things that I think you've done for us, saving us some money there, and I think we'll have continue to have good service. So lastly, really here, the upcoming meeting schedule we have right now, July 13th, July 27th, and August 3rd, as firm as we can have them be meetings, mostly due to the 13th, mostly due to the holiday. That will be the first meeting that Ryan will be our TA. So that's so that we know what's come up, but no action really sought on that one. And that's other matters that have not been reasonably anticipated by the chair. I have none. Gary?
yeah, just a quick question for the other boards and volunteers out there. Do we intend to complete the appointments at our next meeting, wrap up the list?
That's the intent. There are still a couple of open questions that I'm hoping will be able to be resolved, especially since we've got 2 weeks. And I think we'll be able, at that point, probably be able to also appoint, even if they're not full boards yet, at least we can appoint the people that have put in letters of interest, and we'll just continue to ask for the final. There's still a couple of, anyway, still a couple of questions, but yeah, that's the intention.
And one other comment, if I might make,
Sure.
for those that listened into the Conservation Commission meeting last night, there appears to be a need for the Conservation Commission is going to take a look and investigate. It looks like a probable violation of the 100-foot wetlands by clear cutting trees. But I think the Board of Selectmen, the Select Board now, needs to back up the Conservation Commission on this and also take a look at what role the tree service company as well as the conservation grantor play to allow this clear cutting of trees on wetlands in a water safety zone. So
Okay.
that next meeting, I think Margaret has scheduled for the 12th, and hopefully the Conservation Commission can report back to us on the 13th.
Yeah, so we'll hope to, if there's anything they need for us to participate in or opine on, hopefully they'll be able to get to us before our meeting. Okay,
Yeah.
anything
So
else?
if you're not familiar, if you drive out there, what was bufferland wetlands is now 10-foot high chip piles.
Yeah, I understood that there was an issue. It's not been my experience that we've been in, the select board has been involved before in Concom issues, but I don't know where this one's going. And you've been at the meeting, so certainly if it gets to anything more serious or any higher level, we will be involved. But at the very least, if it's appropriate, we would like a report.
Right.
to you.
Everybody have a safe 4th of July too.
Yes, happy 4th of July to everyone. Have a safe weekend. And I guess before we close, we should probably take a motion to adjourn. And now I've forgotten myself. Diane, is that yours?
Is it mine? I don't remember, but
I don't
I
remember.
moved to adjourn the meeting tonight
It is yours.
at 8:31.
Second,
We'll take a vote to approve that motion. Gary,
yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Catherine, yes. Thanks, everyone.